It's innate in farmers to care about your community. Farmers are some of the most intelligent, caring individuals that I've ever met. And I think that once they're told about the food insecurity, they can't help themselves but want to figure out how they can be involved in it.
Welcome to the Farmhouse. I'm Stephanie Spiker.
And I'm Candace Wierzbowski. And the person you just heard was Sophie Brauns. Sophie is the Maryland Market Money Coordinator. Maryland Market Money, also called MMM, is run jointly by the Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission, also known as SMADC. It's a division of the Tri-County Council for Southern Maryland and the Maryland Department of Agriculture. It's run with support from Maryland Agricultural and Resource-Based Industry Development Corporation and the Farms and Food Access for a Resilient Maryland Foundation. We'll be talking to Sophie a little bit later in the podcast, but first we're going to get into some little treats from the website.
So if any of you have been following along with our Farmhouse podcast, you've probably heard Candace and I make jokes about how much we love getting little treats.
I sure do. Love a treat.
So we figured, we want to be sharing stories of women in ag that are on our website at lancasterfarming.com, and we want to make sure you guys get to hear their stories, and they're kind of little treats for you, little news treats. So we're going to get into giving you guys some little treats.
All right, so first of all, we have a story about Pennsylvania artist Cynthia Mindy. She was recently tagged to create a piece for the 2024 Art in the Wood exhibit in Harrisburg's Wildwood Park. And she created this amazing sculpture of a horse made almost completely out of natural wood scraps. And it's not her first horse sculpture either. She's made others, though usually she uses scrap metal, mud, and clay. But because this horse was going to be existing in nature, she went for a more naturalistic approach. Mindy said that she made this sculpture to pay tribute to the therapeutic horses out there, and she's worked with a bunch of them over the years at various nonprofits. And actually, I learned that horse therapy has an official name, hippotherapy. Steph, were you aware of that term?
I knew that hippology was like the study of horses, so I can understand where it came from, but I don't think I knew the term hippotherapy specifically. However, it does really make me think of a hippopotamus giving you therapy, and I'm also, I would be for that.
I like that too. So this very cool sculpture, it pays tribute to hippotherapy by including a little paper mache rider on top. It's a little boy. He looks very comfortable and at ease with his horse. And we've got plenty of pictures of the sculpture at lancasterfarming.com. So I encourage you all to look it up there.
Yeah, that is super cool. I actually have yet to read that article, even though it's on our website, so I'm going to have to go read that myself. And then the other one we wanted to share with you guys is, well, if you don't know, we are well into July, which is well into county fair season. And there's a lot of people doing a lot of things at county fairs. And one of those people is Jenna Myers. We featured her on our website. She's from York County, Pennsylvania, and she's been showing livestock and animals at the York State Fair since she was 5 years old, and she's now 18. So that's like a whole lifetime worth of showing. And this year, and actually this week specifically at the York State Fair, is Jenna's final time in the show ring, which is a huge bittersweet moment for her. And but she has some big plans after Fair Week is over. She's going to be going to Virginia Tech in August. She's going to be studying animal science, and her goal is to be a large animal veterinarian, which is so needed right now. There's actually a bit of a vet shortage going on, especially in terms of like the livestock world. So luckily we're going to be getting a new one in Jenna after she goes to school. So yeah, you can read Jenna's entire story about her life of showing and preparing for her final shows and all of that. And there's lots of other fair stories up on our website as well. So check all of those out at lancasterfarming.com, and good luck to anyone who is showing at their fair anytime this summer.
So with that, we are going to dive into our interview with Sophie. So like I said, Sophie is the Maryland Market Money Coordinator. The Maryland Market Money Program is a program that works with programs like SNAP or WIC, and basically it helps people who are facing food insecurity gain access to fresh food so that they're able to get, more nutrients, kind of more bang for their buck out of the benefits that they're already on. But we will let Sophie explain in detail what it is that MMM does.
Sophie, welcome to the Farmhouse. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
We always start the same way every episode, and that is, did you always want to work in agriculture?
No, not at all. I didn't even consider it, to be very honest with you. The jobs that I thought I wanted to be when I was little would be, or younger, I suppose, was a dermatologist. I thought about being a fashion designer. I've always loved nature. I grew up next to Buddy Hance, who was Secretary of Ag. So I always, that was just always part of my life, but I didn't even know what agriculture was comprised of beyond a farmer. So I could never see myself in that way because there's a lot that goes into being a farmer that I didn't know how to go about getting, like land. To me, it always looked like it was people who had their families that were always farmers. So I thought, well, no one in my family, that's in the US at least, are farmers. So I'd never really saw all of the myriads of ways that agriculture could be something that would make my life and my passions align.
Nice. Well, so tell us a little bit now about, what your job is now and what is SMATIC in general and kind of how you're in ag today.
So SMATIC is the Southern Maryland Agricultural Development Commission. So what I do specifically with SMATIC is I work with Maryland Market Money. But so Maryland Market Money is the arm where we match all federal nutrition benefits. We have about close to 65, creeping on 70 access points that we work with. And those are farmers markets and farm stands. When I came on board 2 years ago, we had 30. So we've over doubled our access points, which is like insane, especially because like our staff hasn't grown and we're doing more things. But it's incredible to see what we're up to. It's also incredible to see the food insecurity. So we partner a lot with like Fresh Farm up in the DC area, Silver Spring area, and we ask the markets to give us data. And once they give us the data for like all the matching they're doing, then we can give them the money to incentivize. We match up to $30 per person per market. So if they have like $30 to spend on their card, we'll match them $30. So that means I actually have $60. So it's really wonderful for supporting our farmers. It's a way for people to engage with their community, which I think is like, if you're present to like our changing societal situation, it's really important to know your community. You see a lot of hiccups in the food system, in the supply chain. And if you know who your farmer is and they're like down the road, that doesn't seem to be such a stressor for people. So I see that as like a quality of life upgrade, which is really incredible. In addition to that, I do a lot of the food access, other programming. So we have opened 5 school pantry refrigerators under our SOMD community refrigerator program. And we stock that with local food, local produce, meats, eggs, raw agricultural goods. So sometimes we have honey in there as well. And so we started with 5 schools. That's a community schools. And then now those community school feeders are becoming 9. And then in addition to that, I just met with this other Title I elementary school where this lady started a food pantry. And then there was like all these other principals. So we're starting in September, we're going to have somewhere around 14 school food pantries started and stocked by local food.
That's awesome.
Dude, it's awesome because my mom's a school nurse. Like I always pack like backpack buddies, like
Mm-hmm.
so I knew about like there was a need. I'm really grateful that like it would at least never knew. My parents never told me about like, oh my gosh, there was times we couldn't put food on the table, but this is my freaking neighborhood, and
Mm-hmm.
it's like they're clamoring for food. And yeah, you can get like shelf stable food, but that fresh produce is really difficult. So today I met with this Church of the Nazarene. They're in Waldorf because we're really hyper focused on Waldorf. Charles County for this arm of our food access work outside of the access points doing the stuff because that's where the money came from. And what we're going to do now is the free fridge program is kind of popular in more urban areas. I'm sure you guys have heard about it before.
I haven't. Can you like just give us a quick summary
Oh,
of
yeah.
that?
Yeah, so basically it's a 24/7 mutual aid access point because what we're seeing now is that people like if they're having if they're facing food insecurity, maybe they can't make it to the hours of like
Mm.
where the food pantry is going to have the pickup, or they have one car, or they're elderly, or the bus stop's too far away to walk, or there isn't a bus
Yeah.
to get them there. And so what we're seeing is usually it's like rural areas now that really need this help. And free fridges have become a 24/7 way for them to always have the ability to get it. So we've set up this system with different community partners. Like our first one was in La Plata with Christ Church, and we tacked it onto their food pantry. So it's on the outside. It has like a little shed. There's also like a little like dry good area, so you can have like feminine products or laundry detergent or whatever the community is like bringing in. And then in addition to that, we have the fridge and the freezer where we stock it. At first, it was just once a week. Then it was getting cleared out within that hour.
Wow.
Then we've been stocking it twice a week, and it's been getting cleared out. Now we're stocking it 3 times a week. This lady that I just met with, she does retail food recovery. And so they've been stocking it. And when they go there, there's people waiting for the food. And these are people that don't even know that they're this like not on a regular schedule that the
Yeah, they
community
just
members
happen
are.
to be there.
Wow.
Wow. I mean, that's great I mean, it's obviously a need, and it's great that, it's being met.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we'll walk back a little because I wanted to talk about the Maryland Market Money benefits. And I was wondering if you could just kind of walk us through if someone is going to a market, how that works for them, and then how does that benefit the farmers that are selling at that market as well?
Yeah, so we have a lot of questions. A lot of times people call us and they're like, oh my gosh, like what do I need to do to sign up for Maryland Market Money? I get SNAP, or I get senior FMNP, or I get WIC. We accept and match every single federal nutrition benefit.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of rare because a lot of people just accept like one type, like SNAP or something like that. And in addition to that, you don't just sign up for anything to get Maryland Market Money. You just have to go on our website. We have all the access points listed, their dates and times, their location. So a lot of times if it's a farmer's market, there's like a welcome, like market manager booth.
Mm-hmm.
So you go there. They typically like run your card. We're moving to e-incentives, which is really amazing, where it's all going to be on this Healthy Together app.
Okay.
Where we won't have the token system. And it's really neat because MDA also chose Healthy Together to roll out their FMNP, which is going electronic. So that's like wonderful. Healthy Together has been above and beyond, like an amazing partner. Their ability to understand what we do and then put it into an app that's easily like utilized by farmers and by participants has been incredible. But basically, once you go to the market, swipe your card, or if it's a farm stand, they just take basically 50% off because we're matching at least up to $30. Then they would go to the farmer and buy their produce. And sometimes like with FMNP, it used to be a receipt thing, but it's not that anymore because it's going electronic. And yeah, it's really pretty simple. The only part that's complex sometimes is getting the market managers to give us the data so that we can like run it by our finance and then we can give them their check because you're busy as a market manager. I don't
Mhm.
know if either of you have ever run like a farmer's
I have
market, but
not, but I can
No.
imagine.
it's a lot. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's incredible. Our MMM team, there's only 4 of us, and we're like doing the e-incentive pilot. So we're piloting right now. 4 of our access points are running on an app system. So it's like their e-incentives automatically update to their app, so they can just scan their app, which is going to be really cool.
Yeah.
We're also writing a grant right now so that we can get technology help for any of the farmers that need that, so that that's not an impediment to them becoming a participant. And an example of like how you asked me, like, how does this benefit farmers?
Mhm.
So for instance, I don't know if y'all are familiar with Miller Farms. It's a really big, like 6th or 7th generation farm right outside of DC.
Okay.
But they were kind of hesitant to participate in the program. And then last year they decided, like, okay, we'll come on board and give it a shot. And they said it was their best year of sales yet. They
Wow.
doubled
All
their
right.
sales.
That's awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's crazy.
I mean, it's a great like kind of like win-win program
Yeah.
where everyone is benefiting. There's no loser here.
There is no loser here except for maybe like the grocery store.
Well, I think they'll be fine.
Yeah, they're okay.
Yeah.
So like you said, I mean, this program has been growing at a really impressive rate. And I'm sure part of that is because, again, like everyone kind of benefits. But why do you think like in the first place it was just so explosive? Almost like it sounds like right off the bat.
Right off the bat, I would say because it is win-win, because people want to know their farmer, especially like when the pandemic hit. I think that explosion happened, because there was this trending movement of you would go to the grocery store and there was nothing in there, but you're not really sure who to go to ask why that is. But if you go to your farmer's market, you can look at that person. It's very analog. And I think when things kind of circuit out, you want to go back to those analog aspects. And I think it's that. I also think it's like the quality of the food, connection to community, and a way to like extend your money, because especially with inflation, we see this, because we have a rolling application. You see this need where people need more money, that what they're getting currently right now with their federal nutrition benefit dollars is not cutting it. Most people, I think it's like a third of Marylanders are facing food insecurity. That is absurd, but that's real. And so if you're going to be able to spend your dollars and get a higher quality product that supports someone I think you would do that.
Yeah, so obviously as the coordinator for this program, you're working with both, the consumers and the farmers kind of on a lot of things, I would assume. So have you seen, I mean, it sounds like so far what we've said, have you seen a very positive reaction from both sides? And then also, do you think it's fostering more of a relationship between farmers and consumers? Because a lot of times people are pretty removed from agriculture if they're not involved in it.
So what we saw happening, we do this with a group in PG County where people will get their WIC benefits. And when they get their WIC benefits given to them, then they have to go find a farmer's market that accepts WIC benefits, because not every farmer's market accepts WIC benefits. So what we did is we organized Carl Schlegel, a farmer, to be there so that when they get their benefits, they get their benefits and they move to the next tent, and that's where the farmer is. And we saw the participation rate skyrocket. And then what happens is when the state looks at the WIC participation rate, they say, oh, they're actually using it, so we'll keep continuing to give that amount or maybe a little more. But what happens if the utilization rate is low? Then they don't give as many. So it's like this awful situation. But it was really just like seeing the need and then having the farmer. So that's one aspect. But there's also that communal aspect of when you build that relationship with the farmer, that becomes like your go-to your go-to market. Like you don't have to go to the grocery store any longer for your corn, because you can go to this place. And I think that breeds health, not only like cellular, like bodily health, but also relational health.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So we've talked a lot about, food insecurity, and I was just curious. I looked on Feeding America, and they said that it's almost 750,000 people in Maryland are food insecure, and 220,000 approximately of those are children. So, obviously the MMM program is a great way to fight that insecurity, but is there anything else farmers can be doing to help with that issue specifically in Maryland for you?
I think the first thing is oftentimes I use Carl just because he was really a convert. Like before he wasn't really like all about this program, or like the Miller farms, they're generational farmers. They weren't all, they're like, oh, these people, like a lot of times it's like, oh, you can go get a job and you can, pay for your own. Like we don't have to worry about
Mm-hmm.
this too much, but it's innate in farmers to care about your community. Farmers are some of the most intelligent, caring individuals that I've ever met. And I think that once they're told about the food insecurity, they can't help themselves but want to figure out how they can be involved in it. And I think it's really SMATIC, allowing MMM and our team of 4. I couldn't say more positive things about our team. Like we're such a small and like agile team that once they hear from us, like, oh, like this is a situation. If you plug in, there are people that are doing a lot of good food access, food insecurity work that they could find a way to make every aspect of what they're growing utilized, whether it's putting it in a free fridge, whether it's connecting with your farm to food bank, whether it's finding a school food pantry, whether it's doing food box giveaway. There's tons of grants out there that want to be linked up, but a lot of times farmers are so busy dealing with our changing climate, dealing with, all of these other facets of their job that they have to deal with, that I'm just really lucky and thankful that in Maryland we have MMM. But most farmers, when they hear like, oh, food insecurity or whatever, I think that if they're just told a little bit more, they all want to see how they can help. It's just that their heads are down, they're working, they're really busy, that it takes someone from outside who does this work to be like, hey, did you know that this was going on? For them to be like, shoot, like, okay, well, how can I help?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I mean, when you're busy with your own life, it's you have a lot going on, especially as farmers, as you said. So it's hard sometimes to see outside of that like bubble that you're in and busy with. So that makes a lot of sense.
I feel like it also like, someone like you, Sophie, like coming and saying like, this is happening and here's what we can do to help. Well, the help is right there. You just have to like, do the handshake really.
That's right.
Because otherwise it might seem, I would imagine, overwhelming at times. Like, oh my gosh, like this is happening. Like, I know I probably could be doing something, but I'm not really sure what it is, how long it's going to take me. So I think it's nice that, you guys are being proactive and like reaching out so that these people know like, okay, 1, this is an issue, and 2, this is what you can do to help. And it's not going to, involve putting in like a few extra hours every week. It really is something that is attainable for everyone to pitch in on.
Yes.
Yeah. So what personally drives your passion for advocating for food access?
I would say there's a couple prongs to that answer. When I was doing research at MD Anderson for integrative medicine for cancer research, what I saw mostly was that it was people's environment, it was people's food that was really like a large indicator of their overall health. And then I worked at the KIPP schools. I don't know if you guys are familiar with KIPP, KIPP.
No.
They're like a hard charging charter school, to tell you, but they're often in like lower socioeconomic areas. And I saw what these kids were eating, and like, just like, this is before I was a mom. I'm a mom of a 2.5-year-old now, but I was just like, shoot, like this is what these kids are eating, but it's like, that's what the families can afford.
Yeah.
And it was just like, I couldn't not look at that elephant anymore. And so then I started getting involved with farms when I was down in Houston, which is like near where MD Anderson and the KIPP school was that I was working at. And I worked with this urban farm called Finca Tres Robles, which are doing incredible work in the Houston area. I work with Recipe for Success, which is doing incredible work with teaching kids in school how to cook. And also they have a Hope Farms, which is like their farm angle where they teach veterans to become farmers. And then I met up with this lady named Kath Conlin, and she works at the Blackwood Land Institute, and she's more of like the regenerative aspect. She also has one of the largest rooftop farms in an urban area called Sky Farm in Houston. And I just saw what all these people were doing. And there is, farming is a business too. So you have to think like, okay, if I'm not going to sell this stuff at the farmer's market, and I don't have a chef that's like asking me to sell this stuff, well, where is the food going to go? And there are grants available for food access. There are people that have money via SNAP, via Federal Nutrition Benefits, that will buy this food, but how do we incentivize them? And especially like now that I live back here in like my own community in Calvert County, it's really just being energized enough to get the logistics together, to get in front of people, to say, hey, we need to make something change here. We can't just constantly eat this tomato that's been grown in Mexico with like God knows what on it, or wherever in the world, and shipped here with like, I just learned that after about like 3 or 4 days, a piece of produce loses like 40% of its nutrient value. I'm just like,
wow.
What is going on? So when you think about like your health, when you think about your community's health, when you think about like, oh, the future of our children, if they're not baseline getting nutritious food, I don't know how we can really expect anything much better, like moving forward. So that's really my passion. Food access, especially for children, especially for elderly people. Yeah, I think we could be doing a ton of things. You just need someone who like is organized logistically and is willing to give it a shot, because you have to start somewhere. Like doing these free fridges is really uncomfortable for a lot of people, but oh well,
Yeah.
What is it uncomfortable for the people running them, or for the people accessing them, or what was that issue?
It was uncomfortable for some of like I don't know if I can say this, but it was uncomfortable for some of the people that were funding it. They were like, oh, like this is going to mess up like the market value for farmers. And most of our farmers were like, what? And what are you talking about? And it is a little bit uncomfortable, I'm sure, for people to use it. But once you're in a place of need, if you kind of get over that, because you have to eat.
Right. You have to do what you have to do. Yeah.
You have to do what you have to do. And there was like a lot of talk like, oh, what if they take everything out of the fridge? Well, then they needed everything out of the fridge, like we're not policing this thing. Right. And it kind of starts to shift this whole idea of like mutual aid, like give what you can, take what you need. And trusting that we'll all help balance it out, which I think is kind of what we need more in our world these days, is not just this like, this is my side, that is your side. If we all shared tools, we wouldn't all need the same tool.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. All right. So you mentioned your time in Houston, and you worked on a regenerative farm when you were there. So I feel like nowadays regenerative is kind of like such a buzzword. We actually just on our website had like this really long article that kind of explained like what is regenerative farming. So can you explain for our listeners a little like synopsis of, I know it's such a like complex thing to explain, but just like little like Reader's Digest version of what does regenerative mean? And then also for you, why is it important?
I don't want a lot of chemicals on my food. I don't want a lot of chemicals on the food of the people that I love or on my children. And regenerative is really just a way of farming that uses less petrochemicals specifically, but you're using more of a natural methods, I would say. And it is such a buzzword now that it's hard for me to even explain it sometimes, because people are like, this is naturally derived, but like, what does that mean? Right. Like you need to flip it over and like look at the ingredients. You just want something that's more like, you want to be able to be composting, and you want to make sure that whatever you're taking from the soil, you're putting back in, and you're planting things that are companions of one another, and not just these monoculture situations. And I think what's happening now is people are starting to wake up to that. It's not anything new. It's actually things that we did before petrochemicals entered into our farming practices they call it the green revolution, but this like sprint forward to really like have to like have this long run back, when if we just turn around, we realize, well, shoot, that really wasn't the right way to do it. And it's healthier for the workers, it's healthier for the land, it extends the life of the land and the workers and the community to farm in a more natural way, a regenerative way. I will say that we're so used to our fruits and vegetables looking so perfect. It won't always be that way if you're farming regeneratively. And also what we're seeing now in these forever chemicals like PFAS and whatnot, that it's just, if you don't stop now, I don't know how long it would take for us to go back and redo it. Because it'll be in the water, it'll be in the soil. It's these like microplastics all in our bodies, and it's in breast milk. And when you farm regeneratively, you're not using many of those things, if at all, truly.
I think that I would wager that the average person probably does not have a very solid handle on what regenerative ag is. So I think any small bit we can help people come to terms with that term would help. So yeah, I do think it's helpful.
I agree.
I put it like this too. Organic isn't always the best, but it's the best we can get right now as far as labeling. What it should be, in my opinion, is not organic and then no labeling. It should be, has chemicals, and then the ones that are like don't have chemicals sprayed all over them. And I know it's really hard too, because nostalgia, we have these generational farmers, and when the green revolution came and when petrochemicals came in, our farmers were told, buy this equipment, buy these things, it's going to make your life easier. And these are good people doing very hard work. So they're like, okay, we're being told this, and we all know marketing's strong, social media, they didn't have it back then, but we even know now in our own ways of how strong it is. They have now these machines and this way of farming, and to go back is very scary because it will take time, and that will be money.
Yeah.
And so, I think with this new farm, we don't want to go into it too much, but like with this new farm bill that's up, it's really huge. It's our farm and food bill. And I think that we're in kind of a catch-22 because there's inflation, but also people want to eat healthier. So now it's kind of like the haves and the have-nots. And that's where I think like food access kind of is trying to help. We have a big thing ahead of us. We need to get into like the ag schools and see who's actually funding the research. And
yeah.
All right, so we're gonna lighten things up a little. I just wanted to ask, what's your go-to when you go to a farmer's market? What are you looking for? What do you like to buy at farmer's markets?
Oh my gosh, well, anything that's in season, right?
Yeah.
So like that's in farmers markets. But green beans, my son Dove will eat so many green beans at 2.5. Everyone's like, he eats green beans. I'm like, he devours green beans. Right now, I'm so into yellow peaches.
Oh,
yes, my favorites. That's my go-to.
Raw milk.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just share, because obviously this is an audio medium, but when Sophie said that, she put her hand up like she was like whispering a little secret to
all
us,
of us,
which I thought was very cute. But yes, we're in Pennsylvania.
There's lots of raw milk.
Not in Maryland yet. Wherever, I don't know but I love flowers, fresh flowers, anything that sparks joy.
Yeah.
Bread, sourdough. Good sourdough bread. Get out of here. Wow.
I went to a farmer's market recently in New Jersey, and they had this amazing, they were like little loaves, and they had tomatoes like baked into the top, and it was just this amazing savory bread that I'm probably going to dream about for the rest of my life. It was so good.
that's what I look for when I go to the farmer's market. Food that I dream about,
Yeah.
but that like I'm not growing.
Yeah.
I haven't, like, because I feel like when you eat it too, there's like a whole other level of joy
Yes.
and like magic.
Yeah. My husband and I have a saying that about certain foods, it's like eating sunshine.
Aw.
And we
Yes.
like most often we apply it to fresh strawberries, but I feel like it applies to so many other fresh foods. It's like it's just you're eating sunshine. It's the best, and it fills you with this glow.
Okay, you'll love this. So my son Dove, when I was teaching him about sunsets, he thought that I was teaching him the word for beautiful, and like, so he ate his first like real blackberry, like juicy,
Oh,
and
yeah.
he went, sunset.
Oh,
And I was
that's so
like,
cute.
yes.
That's
It's like,
adorable.
he's not
Sunset.
wrong.
That like that's a great way
Not
to
wrong.
describe like fresh, beautiful fruit. I love it.
All right. So this is a question that we asked you back at the Mid-Atlantic Women in Ag conference, but we're going to ask you again. What does being a woman in ag mean to you?
Steward of the land, a steward of the people, a partner with men in ag, a mother, caring for ourselves, caring for our land, caring for our community. It's our basic need, and it's one of the most enjoyable fields, but also one of the hardest, which is just like motherhood.
Yeah. There is a lot of crossover, for sure. All right. Well, that actually wraps up our questions. But we want to thank you, Sophie, for joining us today in the podcast. We really appreciated talking to you and learning a lot more about SMATIC and the Maryland Market Money benefits.
Yeah, what a really awesome program that you guys are doing there. That's very cool.
Yeah, so thank you.
Of course.
It was great getting to have Sophie join us here at the farmhouse. We actually already talked to Sophie briefly. If you guys remember the episode where we were on the road and we went to the Mid-Atlantic Women in Ag Conference in Maryland, we met Sophie there and we talked to her for that episode. So she has already made her farmhouse debut, but now it's official. So it was really great to actually get her here for real and not just on our big travel log.
We got an expanded view of Sophie.
Yeah, so that was awesome. And what a cool program. I was not very familiar with the Maryland Market Money program before now. And I mean, it is so tough when you're struggling, financially to get fresh and local food. And I think, we've talked about this before, that it's so easy to take for granted having access and easy access to local food, because I have farm stands and farmers markets within like a mile of my house, and it's so easy to go and get my fresh fruit and vegetables, but it's so tough when you don't have that access. So what an awesome program.
Yeah, I also appreciate the fact that, she touched on children being one of the things that drives her, because one of the issues, obviously, as we touched on with SNAP, with WIC, with these kind of programs, is that they don't always make it easy to get fresh, healthy food. And when you are a child, in addition to just needing the nutrition, you're also forming habits, like nutritional habits that are going to follow you into adulthood. And so being able to introduce children to vegetables, fruit, healthy foods, it's obviously a good thing, because you are then building habits. They're going to discover, hey, I really like, asparagus. And they're going to carry that into adulthood. Whereas if they didn't have access to a program like this, who knows, are they going to have asparagus? I'm not sure. And as an adult, maybe things work out and they have access to asparagus, but to them, are they going to want to eat it? I don't know.
Yeah.
So I like it from that angle too.
Speaking of asparagus, I know asparagus is your favorite vegetable.
It is, yeah.
Are you a asparagus connoisseur at the farmer's market? Or if not asparagus, what is your go-to?
You know what? I actually don't really go for the asparagus at the farmer's market. I should. I tend to get very how do I say this? I'm like a kid in a candy store, where it's
Yes.
just like I go with my gut, basically, where I get very excited about peaches. The flavor of peaches might be my favorite naturally occurring flavor on this planet. So when I see
that's a
stack,
heavy statement.
yeah, I love them so much. So when I see like fresh peaches sitting out there, like it's a done deal. I'm gonna want to buy them. But sweet corn is another thing. Love sweet corn in the summer. And then also, like I kind of mentioned on here, I'm a sucker for any kind of like baked good, especially like a savory baked good. Obviously I'm a raging chocoholic, but you know, nothing really beats like a good savory bread with like some tomatoes or some cheese on top. I love it.
That all sounds incredible.
Yeah. What are your go-tos?
My absolute favorite is a fresh strawberry. Like the first time in the year when I go to like my local farm market and they have locally grown strawberries, it's like immediate buy. Like I can't say no. I'm a huge peaches fan. I love peaches as well. They're so good.
Nothing better.
I don't know. There's so many things. I feel like also a kid in a candy store when you go and it's just like, oh, look at all this fresh produce, and you're just like throwing it in a cart. But I love a fresh cucumber, actually.
Interesting. Okay.
I know you're not a cucumber person,
No.
but I love getting cucumbers and like adding them to my salads and stuff like that. But also in terms of not produce and probably not healthy, but it makes me happy. The farm market I go to has really, really good whoopie pies.
Nice. Nothing like a good Pennsylvania
whoopie pie. We actually just today, the day we're recording, there was a long debate between whoopie pies about Pennsylvania versus Maine versus calling them gobs in the western part of Pennsylvania. So if you have comments about whoopie pies, let us know. We want to know. But
all right, I think that wraps it up for us. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, please consider subscribing if you haven't already done so. If you really like this episode, please consider leaving us a review.
If you have any questions or thoughts about the episode, including whoopie pie comments, you can email us at farmhouse@lancasterfarming.com.
You can also find us on social media at Lancaster Farming on most platforms.
Thank you again so much for visiting us here at the farmhouse. I'm Stephanie.
And I'm Candace.
And we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
This episode of The Farmhouse is copyright 2024 by Lancaster Farming newspaper, part of the Steinman Communications family.
It was written by Stephanie Spiker and Candace Wierzbowski. It was produced by Eric Herlock and Matt Lee. The music you've heard throughout the show is courtesy of Tin Bird Shadow.